We are live.
Thanks. Welcome, everybody. Glad that everybody is here. Good afternoon. My name is Maggie Ullman, and I am the chair of our Environment and Safety Committee. And today is our June 27th, 2023 remote meeting. All council committee members and staff and our guests are participating virtually. So to help everybody follow along, if anybody's watching live or on YouTube, I'll state each section of the agenda so that we can kind of track together. We are streaming this live on our Virtual Engagement Hub, which is accessible through the Virtual Engagement Hub link. It's on the front page of the city's website, real easy to find. We also have an option for the public to listen live by telephone. For those of you out there with us today, welcome. For today's meeting, we have the option for people to call in and comment live during the meeting. To call in and comment live, use the same number, 855-925-2801, meeting code 9477. Your phone will be muted and you'll hear the meeting live. At this point, speakers need to push *3 to enter the speaker queue. All right, and before we dig in, I'll do a roll call to introduce our committee members and staff who are participating with us. I'll say your name and just come off mute and say hello real quickly. So first off, our Vice Mayor, Sandra Kilgore, welcome.
Good morning.
We also have Councilwoman Shanika Smith.
Good morning.
Good morning, ladies. Our City Manager, Deborah Campbell.
Good morning.
Our Assistant City Manager, Ben Woody.
Hey, everybody. Good morning.
Hey, Ben. Our Assistant City Manager, Rachel Wood.
She is watching via YouTube.
Exciting. Glad. Hey, Rachel. Our City Attorney, Brad Branham, is with us also.
Good morning, everyone.
We have our Police Deputy Chief, Jim Baumstark.
Good morning.
And our Assistant Fire Chief, Patrick Crudup.
Good morning, everyone.
And also our Downtown Planning Manager, Dana Frankel's with us.
Good morning.
Hey, Dana. And we have two guests, which you'll see in the agenda in a minute. They'll be sharing, but our Chair and Vice Chair of the Noise Advisory Board, Jessica Thomason and Rick Freeman. Welcome, y'all. Glad you're here.
Good morning.
Good morning.
All right, so let's shift over to the agenda. So to kick us off, we're going to start with our first agenda item, which is any public comment. Katie, do we have any public comment to share today?
One moment, let me check. No, we do not.
Thank you. And then our item 2 is approval of the minutes from May 23rd. Do I have a motion to approve those minutes?
Sandra, so moved.
And a second?
Second.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Aye. The motion passes. Okay. Now we get to dig in. Oh, before we dig in, I don't know if everyone has seen this, but I just got wind of this information via a newsletter from our state senator that House Bill 140 passed, which is the legislation that would enable us to start civilian crash response programs. This is something that the city of Asheville was a big leader on, and we're really grateful our state senator. So that just feels very exciting. We know that we have some challenges in how we're going to keep everything really safe. And I think this is a really win forward. And honestly, it might play into some of the conversation we have with noise advisory. But anyway, I don't know if everybody knew that, but I just wanted to share because I find that exciting. But let's go ahead and jump in. Our item 3 of the agenda is the Noise Advisory Board policy recommendations. My understanding is the chair and vice chair and the whole group have been working some time on looking at our existing policy and ordinance and ways that it could keep being improved. So I'll turn it over to y'all to share what's on your minds.
Great. Thank you so much for having us today. We're really excited to have an opportunity to share some of the work that we've been doing and just see if there's some ways that we can get some support from city staff to move forward on some things that we've been working on. So Katie, if you wouldn't mind going to our next slide. So as you all know, we're a fairly new board since the change of the noise advisory or the noise ordinance that happened in September of 2021. And so part of that was where the noise advisory board was created with the mission for us to basically look at the ordinance and evaluate the effectiveness of it and the regulation and city policies with the goal of developing recommendations regarding amendments, additions, and deletions. And so that's basically what we've been doing. A good part of when we first started in 2021 into 2022 was really looking at the different issues that were affecting people via noise and then us looking for points of leverage to make some change with that. So our goal, as we did with we put our annual report together, our goal is to propose long-term objectives for achieving reduced levels of sound for our business and residential communities and propose means for implementing such objectives. Next slide, please. Okay, so we have some recommendations in terms of how to address vehicular noise. So one of the things that we've seen continually is formal complaints and some of our own observations demonstrating that there's intentional, very loud noise from vehicles that's unwelcome both to businesses downtown, residents, and tourists. So what we'd like to do is recommend to City Council that it direct City Manager to empower us, the Noise Advisory Board, to work with city staff on a revised ordinance to reduce vehicular noise from intentional engine revving and modified exhaust systems, so that we can then present that to City Council for approval in 2023. The Noise Advisory Board would entail additional research, collaboration with city DDS and legal staff, consultation with the Asheville Police Department for enforcement and compliance strategy, and specific written recommendations for presentations for the city. So if you can go to the next slide. So we've been doing some research already, and we've been looking at what some of the other cities somewhat comparable to Asheville, or at least in the Southeast, have done. So we've been looking at some of the things that Knoxville has done and Greenville, South Carolina. So both of these pictures that you see are examples of some things that they've done to help mitigate noise downtown. We'd like to be able to conduct a study to find out days and times that are most problematic. And part of that is, we're putting our own time and energy into that. So basically, we're taking the information from the complaints that we're receiving, but also doing some of our own assessment of just going out downtown certain times of day to see when it's been most problematic. And we'd like to additionally continue to do that also with city staff. And we'd also like to work with law enforcement to have a presence once or twice a month at these most problematic times. So first and foremost, I do want to say that we recognize that there are other priorities that we know are really important for law enforcement right now, especially with the current staffing situation. So we're certainly not asking for a ton of resources to make this happen. But what we're hoping to do is, after we do our research and find out the times that are most problematic, which is most likely going to be a Friday or Saturday night in like peak, tourist time, tourist season, if we can collaborate and coordinate with APD to have some presence, that hopefully just having a presence and being able to write some tickets for what's happening will basically hopefully help to mitigate some of the problems we have. Like, word gets out, like, oh, you can't necessarily be doing this all the time. Oh, they're starting to crack down, sort of thing. I'm a part of a number of groups of downtown business owners. And so I've worked downtown for 24 years. We know it's loud, but there's a difference between just certain levels of noise from just merrymaking downtown and then people basically sawing off their mufflers and just driving around downtown and just revving their engines and being really loud. And it's also one of those things that we definitely see is just, it's a thing that a lot of different people agree on is problematic. So this is one of the places from our research that we feel that we as a board can make a difference if we get some support from city staff. Are there any questions about that?
Only thing I have to say is I appreciate you bringing this before us because I myself have witnessed a lot of those things happening downtown, and I'm like, something needs to be done about this. And so I'm greatly appreciative to you all for bringing that to us. I was just wondering, I know you sort of, like you were talking about the resources that are available through the police department. I was just thinking, is it possible to sort of do it in phases? Like, say, for instance, this noise ordinance enforced sign, that is very effective just for me looking at it because a lot of people just don't know it's wrong or whatever, or they would be fined and the stiff fines that they could, receive for doing this. And I was just wondering, even if we're not able to get all these things implemented, just sort of doing it in phases and getting signs up around the city to see how effective that could be without bringing in different resources that we may, can do without this time.
Yeah, absolutely, Sandra. And I think that, one of the reasons why we wanted to present this like this is that it doesn't, and like I said, we recognize and realize just with the situation with the amount of officers that were down at APD and just knowing that there's a lot of other more pressing issues with public safety that are a bigger concern that, this is something obviously that would still need city resources in terms of approving a budget for us to be able to make the signs. But I think that is a very good example of something that we could do as a first step. That's not going to necessarily take away from other more important things that we're dealing with as a community. So yeah, I think it can definitely be done in a quarter step process and putting signs up. See if we see a decrease in complaints and a decrease in the problem, and then moving forward accordingly. So
thank you.
Yeah.
Y'all jump in on this dynamic because this is on my mind too. And what it makes me think of is I know that we're nearing the transition point where we initiated this 60-day downtown safety initiative. And I think safety and well-being and welcomingness kind of all fold together. And if you look at kind of the details of what we did with that initiative, it wasn't all about policing. Actually, it was a lot about a lot of different things. And so I know staff has been working really hard detailing where this evolves to, because no one is trying to end that. We all just want to grow what we're doing to support downtown. So I would wonder if some of the next steps would be looking to staff, Deborah, and the team that's preparing kind of what comes after the 60-day initiative and how addressing this vehicle noise could be part of that. Because I'll agree, or I agree with you, Sandra. I've been there and it's obnoxious at best and really like startling at worst, and it's really disruptive to the downtown space when you hear these cars barreling through and it's as if they're just doing it for fun. So that would be something I'd be really eager to hear of, because we might be able to programmatically address this without having to do a bunch of ordinance changes. I don't know, Deborah, if you have any thoughts on how those two might marry.
Sure.
Deborah, before you step in, can I just kind of chime in and piggyback off of what Sandra said and also what Councilwoman Ullman said? A lot of the approach from the community responder program was not focused on enforcement, but it was focused on education. So I'm thinking about some type of educational campaign where we can get the information out through our media sources and also signage before, and then assess that. And then we'll see if enforcement and compliance is needed. But in keeping with the spirit of our community responder program, I think at this junction, it'll probably be more effective to educate.
And all of you all are right in terms of how we could potentially respond. We are awaiting you all's direction in terms of your committee direction as to whether you want to take this on as part of your work program or to direct staff to address. This is only part of the ask. So this is vehicular, and then there's another section that's going to be related to sanitation work. So we're looking at it in its totality and potentially assessing what, staff resources and impact on staff resources. And we'd be more than happy, depending upon the direction of the committee, to incorporate some of the ideas and strategies that you all just talked about, in particular, leading with education, and then take next steps in terms of stricter enforcement and clarifying who really kind of owns enforcement of the noise ordinance.
I guess
Hope that was helpful.
Yeah, and I think what I think I'm hearing is the examples of the strategies that I hear my colleagues bringing up, and ladies tell me if I'm interpreting this differently, but I feel like I'm not hearing all in, make this the top priority, reappropriate police staff so we get it. What I'm hearing is this is a problem. We want to address it. We want to balance how we design solving this with our ability to actually enforce and to be as pragmatic as possible given, and Jessica, you brought this up, given the resource constraints. No one's trying to say this above everything else, but we see that there's some low-hanging fruit things that we can do to address this. And so if that's how I'm viewing this, and so if there's ways to step towards this in a phased approach, Sandra, like you were saying, where we can turn the dial a little bit to get a good outcome, I think that would be worthy of staff time. But I want to make sure that, we don't go into a 5-year think and review and study process. And I don't hear anyone asking for that, but I would want it to be really pragmatic and swift and concise and precise to see what we can do.
And I'll just add that, as a board, we're willing to do the work. I mean, we definitely view ourselves as being there to help support the city in terms of making things better and trying to alleviate those stresses off the city as much as possible. And I love, Councilwoman Smith, that you said starting from an education standpoint, because that is so much of what we've had to do. This is when it comes to noise, when it comes to sound and how sound travels and how sound is picked up and recorded. So much of what we do and have been doing is educating people on that, right? Because it's also so subjective, and that's the other thing that we work with. It's not a matter of like how many, we need more green space or trees. It's just like, what's loud to one person isn't to another. And so a lot of it is educating people on it. So I think that is a great first step, and anything that we can do on our end to help, give us a budget and we can do the research for the signs or that sort of thing, or, work with whatever it may be. So we're happy to do the work if we get the support for it, for sure.
And I think we've also learned through the 60-day downtown initiative that safety and cleanliness it doesn't rest on the shoulders of law enforcement alone, and it's taken an interdepartmental effort. So, and if we decide to go this direction with education, then what other department has the time and the bandwidth to help us design and conceptualize what a media campaign around our enforcement concerning exhaust systems and excessive noise? Maybe that is kind of like the shaping of the direction.
Great.
Definitely. Great. Any other questions about the vehicular noise before I turn it over to Rick to talk about waste haulers with you?
Okay,
right.
Great. Let's move on to the next slide, please. So the challenge here is that it's the timing of the noise that is particularly problematic for downtown residents. Before the noise ordinance was drafted and approved, and Ben Woody can testify to this fact, we actually had a meeting as we were collaborating with getting the noise ordinance written with some waste haulers and staff at that point in time. And it was really educational to me that part of the reason, or the primary reason for this early start, is that the waste haulers compete to be in the same space. So any alley may get 3 or 4 different waste haulers trying to get in and out of there to do the job that they have contracted with the businesses to do. And since it's not coordinated, they felt very strongly that they needed to start this early so that they would be off the streets before the pedestrians start to wake up in the morning and go out for coffee and have breakfast and those kinds of things, because they're worried about safety, because they have to back out of these alleys and cross sidewalks, and there have been pedestrian industry injuries over time. So we talked in general terms how we can't risk people getting hurt, but there needs to be a better system than this so that we just don't have this problem with everybody trying to be in the same place at the same time. And so I reached out to residents based on their complaints and talked to them and got their commitment that they would participate in a task force with the city to look at how other cities have handled this and how other cities in our region and other tourist cities like ours can successfully delay the dumpster slam until 7 a.m. when most people are already awake and trying to get on with their day. So what we're asking is the committee to ask city management to set up a task force that would include sanitation, business leaders, and residents from downtown who could then study how other cities have accomplished this sort of thing and how they have managed to both keep the cost of waste hauling down so that it isn't a burden on the business, reduced public safety as a result of a better coordinated plan, and then made downtown more livable. Next slide, please. So as an example, if we've done our research, we've looked around at other cities, you can see that other North Carolina cities have substantially later starts than this. Raleigh at 6, Charlotte 7, Winston-Salem 7. And then other tourist destinations with even larger populations than Asheville also managed to get this pushed back to 6 a.m. or 7 a.m. So what we would be looking to do is just put a team together, as the city has done in numerous circumstances when they're trying to study something like open space amendments or missing middle housing, and include these people in it to look at how other cities have done this. Just the fact of putting that task force together will help downtown residents feel positive about the impact that it could have. And I have commitment from members of the Downtown Residents Neighborhood Association to sign up and be part of this and to participate in the research and bringing examples back to the city that could be considered, and finding out where this has been done successfully and what the processes were. So if with your support and fitting this into your work plan, we would start that task force. And of course, the advisory board would stay engaged to make sure that it all got off the ground properly. But then ultimately it doesn't become a noise advisory problem. It just becomes a revised strategy for waste pickup. So with that, I'd love to take any questions.
Hi, Rick. Thank you very much for coming before us and presenting this. My concern is the 7 a.m. That you're sort of looking at. To me, I think that would definitely be a conflict, especially in Asheville, because sort of sort of where we are and the things that, and the amount of businesses downtown and the amount of activity downtown. When you talk about, and I was looking at a lot of the cities there that you have, pretty much, I guess Charleston will be comparable with the tourist, is at 6, and even Raleigh at 6, but Winston and some of the others, they don't really have the tourist industry, as strong as we do. So I was just wondering, when you talked about bringing a task force together, I'm trying to figure out what would they actually be studying more so than the actual times. I mean, we have other areas found more in honestly better ways to pick up the trash or whatever, because all I'm seeing here is a factor is the time. And I'm just wondering the need for having a task force just to study adjusting the time. And I was just wondering, because that's the only factor I see. And for me, I'm not sure. Whatever.
So let me answer that question. I've done a little research, but since sanitation strategies are a little bit beyond the scope of the Noise Advisory Board, what I can say is that some very large cities with huge business districts have taken charge of what waste haulers serve what districts at what period of time. So imagine, if you would, that you could break downtown up into some reasonable places and work with the waste haulers to say, look, you're responsible for these 4 blocks, you're responsible for the next 6 blocks, etc. Therefore, that one truck, as an example, makes that cycle without ever needing to wait for another waste hauler to back out and get out of their way. So what I've seen at a glance is that they build a strategy rather than just letting every business pick whatever waste hauler they want. And then the waste haulers either have to collaborate or not collaborate to get things done. And that should, at least the studies that I've read, smooth this all out and allow people to get in and get out in a much shorter period of time, which has the positive side effect from a noise perspective of they don't need to start so early, so it is not so onerous on the downtown residents to hear things banging at 5 o'clock in the morning. But that's not a short study. That takes people with a lot more experience than myself to actually look at other strategies. And much as Asheville and Buncombe County dictate waste pickup throughout the rest of the city, whether that's an appropriate short-term, long-term, or medium-term strategy to do that, which would have the benefit to residents who live downtown.
I see Assistant City Manager Woody, you have your hand up.
Thank you, Councilwoman Holman. I would just like to, we also have Jess Foster on the call today, who is our solid waste division manager. And really, Sandra, in the spirit of your question, and Rick, in the spirit of your response, one thing that happened, council did allocate funding in next year's budget to support a solid waste master plan. So I do think there's some connectivity, not only with noise, but just the manner in which we provide that service, or the manner in which that service is provided in downtown. So if it's okay, Councilman Holman, I'd like to ask Jess to give a little bit of background and some perspective on how that master plan may play into this as well.
Yes, please.
Thanks, Ben. Yes, as Ben said, we council did approve $350,000 in the upcoming budget for our solid waste master plan. I'm really excited about that. And a big piece of that is going to be looking at how downtown waste collection happens. So we have commercial waste collection, and then the city is also collecting from some residents and small businesses downtown. And like Rick said, like some of the ways that we're doing all of this are really outdated, especially given the way that downtown has grown. But, noise is not the only factor. Like space is a factor, development requirements, looking at roadway damage. And so he's right in that, there are other ways to do that type of collection through franchise zones where you don't have haulers competing, or You have compactor zones where everybody is just taking their waste to one location in specific zones. So cities have done it a lot of different ways. We're just, we're all different. And so the solid waste master plan will be looking into that to solve a lot of our challenges, which should then hopefully solve some of the noise issues. So my request would be to that solid waste master planning process will be hiring a consultant, and public engagement, community involvement will be a significant piece of that. So my request would be to come to this group when we get to that piece of the work and involve you in helping to develop those strategies. But we will have a professional solid waste consultant who, you know, are the experts in how things are done, you know, worldwide.
Thanks, Jess.
Thanks.
City Manager Campbell.
I think the long and short of this conversation is that we're kind of fortunate that we have initiatives that are underway that could probably address both of these issues without creating something separate or distinct that goes on its own path, but needs to be incorporated into a broader strategic look at how we address multiple issues downtown. So I hope that Mr. Freeman and others will receive this as, and the committee, that this is, I think from the staff perspective, a positive response that we can address all of these things in time.
Yeah, I mean, I'll just echo that. Having spent years working in city government and then now being on council, it's always harder to start a new thing than to fold into. So I find it really optimistic that, one, the Noise Advisory Board has done so much work to get a group kind of aligned on top priorities, because that is not easy work, I'm sure, from your committee. And the fact that you've been able to do that work to come together with these priorities really helps us step in and say, great, here's where we can kind of dock these to work with the alignment in the community and then have the staff resources. I see your hand up too, Rick. What's on your mind?
So when I started working toward this, I had reached out to Jess. She was coming off of medical leave, and it became impossible for us to get face-to-face before the deadline for the annual report. But I was aware that they had been seeking funding for a new master plan. And I sort of thought to myself, well, this is another poke in that direction that would maybe push them over the line. So I don't have any problem at all supporting this as a sub-objective of the overall master plan. And the second thing I would offer that would go a little bit beyond my responsibility to the Noise Advisory Board, but as the president of the Coalition of Asheville Neighborhoods, we have collaborated recently with the consultant that came through to look at homelessness. And we ran focus groups on their behalf to get the right residents into the right room at the right time to share their findings and what they're concerned about and that sort of thing. So either I, from a Coalition of Asheville Neighborhoods perspective, or our board member that's on the downtown residents neighborhood, I'm sure I can get 100% commitment to fit into the consultant work at the appropriate time and make sure that the voices are heard.
That's fantastic. I mean, we really appreciate it. And I think this is the synergy and the energy that's needed between council board, staff, and addressing community issues. So thank you, Mr. Freeman, for that offer.
Welcome.
Yeah, that sounds fantastic. So staff, is there more you need from us to kind of soak up kind of where our synergy is and where the synergy is of the group to kind of move forward?
I think what we have heard, in particular with the waste hauler recommendation, that will be folded into the solid waste master plan update, and then we will look at the What are we on vehicular noise, or is that, okay, appropriate? We will look at that as we are considering some of the implementation, education, outreach related to addressing that issue. I hope, and I'm looking to Dana and Ben, if that is a path forward that you feel comfortable with regards to the vehicular noise issue.
Yeah, I think Deborah, Ben Woody, I think it is. I think we want to talk through that a little bit and think it through. But I know again, Mark Matheny, Director of VSD, is listening in on the call, and so Jessica and Rick, I will get with Mark after this meeting, get connected with the two of you, and you know, we'll see how this can fit into kind of those next steps in our downtown initiative. And I certainly think that the noise team clearly plays a role in downtown and impacts. And so, yes, I think, Deborah, we can pull this together and have some synergy around that conversation.
And then I would just ask if the council committee is comfortable with that direction, the direction that we just provided for you all.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that sounds good to me.
Thank you. And thank you, Jessica and Rick.
Okay, I have one more request and one more slide.
Great.
So if you could advance the cause. The ordinance will be 2 years old in September. And we are now entering tourist season and the noisiest season in Asheville. We'd like to just make a request, much as there was lots of public outreach leading up to the ordinance and making decisions on what was in and what was out. We'd just like to make a request that at this time would be a good time to just get public feedback on what's working and not working. We know from the Noise Advisory Board standpoint that with the more important activities that APD needs to handle, that we're not going to get great news from people who are really worried about noise in terms of response time, especially off-hours response time. So we shouldn't be surprised by that, but the enforcement team and compliance team has worked really hard to reach out and into multiple segments, especially multifamily housing, where the vast majority of noise complaints come from. It would just, I think, help us refine our next steps as a noise advisory board if we could get well-surveyed public feedback. I'm sure that the communication organization is very busy on very many things, but if we could fit this into their plan at some time in 2023, it would help us with these two great activities that are going to be underway, solving some problems. It would help us refine the public's view of where the next version of big problems are, and just recalibrate our next actions.
Deborah, I'm thinking that equity and engagement, we had a conversation with Adawa not too long ago about potential questions to ask during a public input survey. And I don't know when that is planned, but I'm wondering, since we're in the spirit of folding these recommendations into larger plans, if that could not fit into some of the work that Adawa is already doing.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And to that end, we would be glad to come up with a prioritized set of questions based on what we think we want to know, but we're not survey experts by any stretch of the imagination. So those would be the topics that she could consider, and then craft that effectively into the overall communication plan. That'd be great.
Absolutely. And I actually just heard from Dawa, and she said we can do that. So.
Because I think what she wanted to do, she was surveying council and prompting us to come up with questions that will be very powerful. So maybe this committee can collaborate with the Noise Advisory Board to formulate those questions and present it to Dawa and her team. And maybe we can, in that public survey, maybe noise can have its own subgroup so that it gets the attention and the credence it needs.
Absolutely. Great idea. We'll do it.
Excellent. Thank you.
You.
That's
Thank
it for
you.
us.
3 for 3. All right.
Yes, I love it when a plan comes together.
This will motivate us for the next tough ones.
Good to see you, Jessica and Rick.
Yeah, thank you all so much.
Thank you. Thank
Yep.
you.
Appreciate it.
Thanks,
All right,
guys. Great. It's so nice when just such like thorough, precise, and focused teamwork can happen. So thanks. Okay, moving on to the next item of our agenda. Item number 4 is an update, as we've done a couple times in this initiative of the Downtown Safety Initiative from Dana Frankel and Ben Woody. Over to y'all.
Thank you, Chair Ullman. I am going to lead off with a very brief intro, and then Dana is going to give a pretty brief update. So this shouldn't take too long. Good morning again. I'm Ben Woody, Assistant City Manager, and I've been working along with our other Assistant City Manager, Rachel Wood. We've been working with Dana Frankel, who, as everybody knows, is the project manager for the 60-day initiative. And, you know, of course, we've worked closely with Dana and tried to support our departments throughout this. Happy to be here again today to give you an update. For those that are counting, this is day 57 of the initiative. So we're getting close to the end of June. We also have today, we have some staff from APD, Fire, and PW. I do want to just take a second to recognize a couple other staff that we didn't cover at the beginning of the meeting. So we also, in addition to Deputy Chief Baumstark, we have Captain Stepp, who is on the call. And of course, Captain Stepp's been really the lead for APD on this, and she's a great resource and certainly can answer any questions that come up today. We heard from Jess Foster a little earlier. Jess also has played an instrumental role in the 60-day initiative. She has really helped in terms of a lot of our cleanliness efforts downtown. So again, I want to recognize Jess, and of course, she's here to answer questions as well. As we've discussed many times, the Downtown Safety Initiative is a multi-departmental effort that provides a focus on safety, cleanliness, as well as assisting individuals that are in need in our central business district. So it truly has been an interdepartmental approach towards our downtown. Initiative launched on Monday, May 1st. So again, we're almost through the 60 days. We've included actions across departments as well as collaborative efforts, not only internally to the city, but we've had a lot of collaboration with our community partners and our businesses and our residents as well. And all that's been in the spirit of identifying, providing avenues to report concerns, and most importantly, providing opportunities and avenues for the city and our partners to try to address those concerns in creative ways. So that's my introduction. I'm going to turn it over to Dana Frankel, our project manager, and she's going to walk you through a couple of key updates. And again, when Dana's done, we are certainly able and happy to answer any questions. Dana.
Thank you. Thank you, Ben, and good morning, Council. Happy to provide just a brief update here. So as we shared at your last meeting, actions taken and data collected during the Downtown Safety Initiative continue to be tracked on the project page, as well as sent out to the project subscriber list every 2 weeks. The interdepartmental team held a retreat last week on Thursday, June 22nd, to review data, review lessons learned, and forge a path forward to maximize service delivery for supporting a safer downtown and safer city as a whole. And some key takeaways of the retreat were that the proactive public safety presence is absolutely appreciated by the community. Survey results did indicate, and we still need to go through these a bit more, but that people are feeling like downtown is cleaner. There are opportunities for additional collaboration and increased efficiency in service delivery. The focused initiative is a model that could be replicated in other areas. And we recognize that it's important for the city to be able to respond and adjust services based on data. So staff is now working on a deeper analysis of service level impacts during the 60-day period, and we will pursue immediate continued enhancements such as the Community Responder Initiative and others when possible, as well as determine medium and long-term opportunities for continuous improvements. An increased public safety presence, proactive public safety presence will continue immediately beyond the 60 days, as well as services that provide a clean and safe downtown. So details on the services that the city provides and will continue to provide beyond the 60 days will be shared with City Council and then posted on the project page and shared with our subscriber list no later than this Friday, June 30th. And so that's the update I have for you all. We'd be happy to answer any questions, but again, we'll be sharing more detailed information at the end of this week.
Thanks, Dana. Thanks, Ben. So it sounds like it's of the things that we've been kind of testing out. We know that we're going to continue rolling forward with community responder and cleanliness, and that y'all are doing detailed, thorough work between your retreat last week and this Friday to be able to share with the whole community. I know that takes a lot of work while delivering a new initiative, so I appreciate that. I'm trying to think. I don't know if anybody else has any questions. I think the big thing for me is I'm just eager to see kind of where this is going and what type of policy impact that'll have. And it sounds like you're working through that now before we're ready to kind of have that conversation.
I think that's accurate to say. Yeah, I think that's fair.
Any other questions or comments from?
No, I guess we'll just wait until the final report comes out. But I think what's most pressing on my heart is to find out where there are gaps in our service, supportive service delivery. And I know we probably have a great idea of what those gaps are and where we need to beef up support. But I think this would just kind of add to that conversation.
I see. Deborah?
Yes, I think what we wanted to do today is to really kind of communicate to this committee as well as to the community. We're not going to stop anything that we undertook for this 60-day initiative. We are working through probably some of the details about the frequency of the service. We want the community to understand that, particularly as it relates to a presence. We will continue to be on foot. We will have law enforcement on bikes. I mean, we're going to have the things that we were either returning to or initiating new, like our community responder program. That is going to continue. You know, the frequency of how often we're going to spray the sidewalks, or how quickly we can respond to removal of graffiti. All of those details we will generally have toward the end of the week, but we're still kind of working through all the real kind of technical service delivery details. But for the most part, everything that we've done in those 60 days will continue. It's just how frequently can we do some of those things that I don't know if it are things that we should have been doing and weren't doing. I don't think that there's a lot of that. I think what we're doing is finalizing a baseline of service delivery for downtown. This is what the services we're going to deliver. And lastly, I will say that the impact on the broader community in terms of crime, we didn't see any spikes anywhere else because of this focused attention downtown. And then lastly, we are also doing some things with our public housing communities. some initiatives that we will also identify that we're going to move forward with as well. So thank you all, and thank Dana and the rest of the team. Appreciate the work.
I do have a question. Like, I guess everybody has a different idea about what encompasses downtown. Like, so I'm wondering if after we get all the data, will we kind of reassess our footprint or focus on other areas? Because I know there's a large outcry from West Asheville neighbors. So I'm wondering if we will be taking a look at expanding just a bit.
I'll say that for the purpose of this initiative, we focused on the central business district specifically. So when we refer to downtown, that's what we're referring to. Moving forward, we do see opportunities to kind of replicate this type of focused work. And we've heard similar feedback as well, specifically about West Asheville. And I don't know if Deborah wants to provide just anything further on that note in terms of replication or expansion.
Yeah, we definitely probably went outside of the CBD with the community responder initiative, because I think they went on Tunnel Road. They kind of went where the need is. And that's essentially what we're trying to do. We're trying to go where the need is. And with the downtown effort, we saw the numbers. The data just demonstrated that there was a significant need for some additional resources to respond to the spike in crime, and it was occurring downtown. We hope that we're not just chasing crime. We hope that we've learned a little such that we can begin to prevent and mitigate versus just chasing and being reactive. We want to be more proactive. And I really do think some of the things that we're doing, and Shanika, you mentioned this about education. I think this is helping us prepare business owners, property owners, residents for how they can help us prevent and be in that public safety space. So that's kind of how we want to move forward. Is again, this is, as Mr. Woody said, this is a collaborative, community-wide initiative. All hands on deck.
Thanks, Deborah. And this also makes me think of the follow-up from our council retreat that we had earlier this month, and how we started to dial into some public safety goals. And I think as we are creating our work plan for this committee, really understanding kind of what are the policy conversations. I think, Ben, you might have mentioned, or maybe it was you, Deborah, just kind of like, here is our service delivery baseline. What does that mean for West Asheville? What does that mean for downtown? As new programs become available, like the civilian crash responder, what does that do? I think something I think of is, when we're looking at root cause of crime, we know there's a lot of societal things we need to address, but we also know at this point that our staffing shortage in the police department is a major contributor to what we can and can't do. So I'm hoping that this committee is able to kind of look at some of the big picture for the goals for initiatives like this, so that they're all weaving together, so that we're having kind of a coordinated safety strategy. I think this is the real fantastic kickoff that's been so well received, really well needed, and really well executed. Great. Any other thoughts on this topic? All right. Thanks for the update as always. Look forward to kind of seeing the information later this week, and I'm sure this will be a conversation for our committee at other points as well. Moving on to our fifth and last item of our agenda, which is the closeout public comment. Katie, do we have any public comment on the line now?
Yes, we do. One moment.
Great, thank you.
Caller ending in 1247. Your line is now open.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
My name is Steve Halick. I live at 55 South Market Street, right across from Triangle Park. First, before I commented about the noise, I did want to say, as somebody who walks downtown every morning, nearly every morning, I have noticed an improvement in the cleanliness in the city. Just sort of anecdotal. But as Rick was alluding to, and the noise committee was, the car muffler noises going up and down Biltmore on the weekends is excessive. In fact, we just had somebody, I think he starts working at Barley's, who has an illegal muffler, and he gets off work at 3 a.m. and he starts his car and he wakes up everybody in our building. I have found a possible solution. I think maybe they uncovered this in Knoxville. There's an item that wouldn't take more police presence. It's a sound radar, as it were, akin to a speed camera, a red light camera, and that might be a way of possibly enforcing or monitoring, getting data. And then as far as the trash, we are surrounded by essentially 7 large metallic trash dumpsters that are picked up 5 days a week from 5 a.m. to 9 a.m. It really becomes bothersome after a while. And again, they will probably uncover this looking at other areas, but in Europe, most all the trash dumpsters are plastic, which mitigates the sound. They also don't leak. They're easier to maintain. And apparently they're also more graffiti resistant. So, and I also think Hawaii, we saw theirs being used there. So that would be a possible mitigation to decrease the level of the noise. But thank you for your efforts. And that was it for my comments.
Thanks for joining us. Katie, are there any other comments? All right.
Oh, sorry, Councilmember. There is one moment. Sorry.
Great. No worries. No worries.
Caller ending in 1661. Your line is now open.
Hey, y'all. I don't know if you've been to West Asheville recently, but there's some real problems over here as far as trash and vagrants and everything. And to me, talking about noise and all this is all great and all, but it's kind of like talking about the colors of the curtains while the house is on fire. There's some serious problems over here. People shooting up right outside of businesses. People smoking crack right outside of businesses. People defecating and peeing right outside of businesses. So I really appreciate any kind of tips you have as a business owner and resident. What I can do from doing these things right outside my business. It's hard to run a business when you got that. All right, thank you very much.
Thanks for your call. It does.
You have some more. We have some more callers in the queue as well.
All right, keep going.
Caller ending in 7629. Your line is now open.
Hi, Council. I was just calling. I was listening today, and I'm a West Asheville resident. I really don't want to see this initiative move to West Asheville, although I think that it's already happening in my neighborhood in West Asheville. I was just walking my dog during the beginning of this meeting, and there are police currently at the end of my street harassing somebody who's homeless. I've seen the crackdown downtown. I don't think we should be using the word safety when we're talking about people who were literally designed to oppress poor people from the beginning of their creation. And that's what we're seeing as you all continue to see this influence of downtown business owners who call in, who have the time and resources to call into things like this. I am deeply concerned, especially after watching, I think police are cracking down in Southside. We saw them use a restricted breathing tactic with Devin Whitmire, and it was very disturbing. And now, still, despite the fact that the police keep claiming they're understaffed, there are more and more and more of them. Yesterday, I saw 2 police officers with this dog that they got, Cora, to try to make policing look cute when policing is actually really violent to our community. And I am concerned about safety. I just think that safety happens through community care, and that we have people who are deeply in need in our community right now. There is a huge and growing wealth disparity here, and many of us who live here know how hard it is to keep up with the cost of living in the fifth most expensive rental market in the country, the most expensive in North Carolina. And I've said it so many times, but we can't incarcerate our way out of this. I don't know what the plan is to just lock people up in our state's deadliest jail, Buncombe County Detention. And I really want to see safety improve in our community, but to me, that doesn't look like an increased police presence. There's already an increased police presence in my community. And I would encourage us to look at other methods, because we know the data also that addressing needs is what actually has a reduction in so-called crime. Incarceration doesn't work. When we have the most incarceration in the entire world in the United States, and it isn't helping. So, just calling to let you all know that again. I hope you have a good day.
I'm going to check and reload to make sure that was it for callers. That is all for public comment.
Thanks, Katie. All right, unless there's any further items from my councilwoman, we can move towards adjournment.
I have something to bring forward to the Public Safety Committee. We received an email not too long ago from a community member who was a vendor at the Juneteenth celebration where there was a public shooting. The individual recommended that council look into mandating supervision of any event goers or festival goers under the age of 18. So I was just putting that out here to the committee. I believe that Brad has started looking into some ways that we can put some type of enforcement in place. I'm not sure how that is going to look, but I think for us to just be a little proactive when a lot of people are gathered in one place, that we come up with safety mechanisms so that families can have a good time and not be in fear.
Thanks, Shanika. If you could pass that email along, I'm not seeing it in my email, so I'd love to know kind of more of the insights. But yeah, do you think, do you want us to open up more of a conversation on that, or just kind of want to put it on the radar? Because I'd love to learn more. I think it was pretty alarming to so many people in the community that this happened.
I think Brad might give us some recommendations on how to look at supervision for underage event goers in our downtown space.
Got it. Yeah, I'd love to hear I'd love to get more information on that as well.
Yeah, I'm actually speaking with staff. I spoke with staff yesterday regarding some ideas that are being reviewed about whether or not those are authorized and something we can incorporate into our process. And we'll be sharing those with council once we have something collected.
Thank you.
Great. And I'd mentioned earlier that I'm super excited about this civilian traffic responder program. I'd love to know. Yeah, I'd love to hear more about how we're going to operationalize that, or what we're thinking about now that we have that enabling legislation. When staff has more information, that would be great too. Cool. All right. With that, I think we are adjourned. Thanks everybody for being here, and